So let's speak a little bit about this issue of Twitter by heading north of our continent, where Nigerians are in uproar after the government indefinitely suspended Twitter. The social media platform had deleted a tweet by President Muhammadu Buhari about dealing with the successionist movement that damaged public infrastructure in the southeast. Now, members of the public reported that tweet as being offensive and in violation of Twitter policy. So for more on this story, let's speak now to Nigerian writer as well as journalist Aromo Egbejule. Aromo, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Many of those misbehaving today are too young to be aware of the destruction and loss of lives that occurred during the Nigerian Civil War. Those of us in the fields for 30 months who went through the war will treat them in the language they understand. That was a tweet posted by the Nigerian president. This tweet was perceived as offensive. What do you make of what was actually posted?
Thank you, Faith. I think when many people saw the tweet of the president, especially the older generation, were reminded of the bitter time when the bitter civil war that lasted for 18 months and how there has been the recurring marginalization of people in the Southeast since then. And that has reflected much in this administration, because you have to recall that when he was just elected in 2015, the president talked about doing more for people who voted him in and didn't vote him in. And so all of that has crystallized in feelings of marginalization. And to then talk about showing them the treatment that was meted out during the Civil War, it just seemed like using a hammer on anything that seemed like a nail. And many of the younger people who also have memories of the government's mishandling of the situation last October during the NSAS protest also did not take kindly to the words that the president used.
Yeah, I mean, right now we've got Twitter that has been suspended indefinitely. I remember one such a sentiment that was shared was, does it make sense for, the president to use Twitter, or the Nigerian government to use Twitter to post about the suspension of Twitter? So it certainly does say something about the influence that Twitter actually has. Exactly what impact does this have now?
It was pretty hilarious to see that, especially because the two times that Buhari has won the election, he did come on Twitter to thank people for galvanizing interest in his campaign through social media. So it's almost like biting the finger that fed him in a way. And given that Buhari has a predilection for not speaking to the people, we are used to hearing from him from his Twitter handles. So it does go to show you that there is some sort of paradox going on in the top annals of this administration. Yeah. And one can only wait and see what happens, whether we are also going to be told about the lifting of the ban or the extension of the ban on Twitter.
And how are people responding to it in general? I mean, we were playing clips earlier on and during the course of the show of just some of the responses that we're receiving. But on the ground and the general sentiment amongst Nigerians, how do they respond to this and how are they feeling about this?
Primarily Nigerians, especially young Nigerians, and there are a lot of them, probably up to 60–70% of the country. Young Nigerians are enraged. That's something such as Twitter, which is a coping mechanism for most of the country in this time and age, has been taken away from them. And then there's all sorts of Twitter has been acting as an infrastructure for small and medium businesses, for people to find jobs, for relationships, for everything. Twitter has become a one-size-fits-all tool for many of them, so they are enraged. But then, secondary, there's also a bit of humor, because Nigerians are very resilient people, and so as they are finding alternative ways to access Twitter, they're also making jokes about it and jokes about the government. So it's both feelings, it's mixed feelings of both anger and of humor at how they perceive the government to be incompetent in announcing a Twitter ban on Twitter, and in responding to a deleted tweet faster than reports of insecurity from so many parts of the country, including in the president's home state of Katsina.
I mean, you're speaking about the response to, the president's tweet being removed off the social networking platform. And I remember reading somewhere that an individual was saying, is it not funny how the government is slowing down or very lax in its response to how many young people have been kidnapped in schools? And yet one tweet is deleted and all of a sudden the Nigerian government is very fast to act. Is this seen as a form of bullying? And what will young people do about it?
It is seen as a form of bullying because, yes, you're right. Yesterday or the last 2 days, there was yet another kidnapping incident in the north of the country. And even today, as the Attorney General was talking about prosecuting young people for going against the ban and still using Twitter, 66 people have been kidnapped in the Attorney General's state of Kebbi, right? So people see this as bullying and a misdirection of priorities, and young people, as far as I can tell, are rallying for some sort of demonstration. But then again, they're also worried, they're also afraid because during the October 2020 protests against police brutality, the government also tried to use the same technique of shutting down the internet in parts of the country, slowing down the internet. So yeah, young people really feel like this is bullying and they're going to come up with some sort of demonstration. Nobody knows how that is going to work because even if you decided to sue the Nigerian government, the courts are currently on strike. They have been so for 2 months. So it does seem like a sort of stalemate.
We're going to leave it there. Nigerian journalist Eromo Egbojule, they're giving us the latest on how Nigerians have been responding to this indefinite ban of Twitter by the Nigerian government. Well, on to